New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani he's in Puerto Rico for an annual summit that brings together New York politicians and lobbyists, the infamous SOMOS. Before arriving, Mamdani spoke by phone with outgoing Mayor Eric Adams, who promised that his team will fully cooperate with this transition. Meanwhile, Wall Street is reckoning with Mamdani's win. As NPR put it, New York City CEOs and other billionaire business leaders spent more than $40 million trying to stop Mamdani from becoming the city's next mayor. Now, they have to live with him. And Liz, in your latest piece for Semaphore, headlined, "Relax, nobody's leaving New York," you write in part this: as the city's financiers complain loudly about Zohran Mamdani's win, watch what they do, not what they say. Sales of pricey condos hit a 3-year high as Mamdani's win was all but assured. Indeed, Midtown, in particular, is celebrating an incredibly hot real estate market. A former real estate executive remarked last week, commercial leasing is out of sight. And Liz, I will say, I've thought this storyline was sort of overblown to begin with. We heard similar things when Bill de Blasio was elected. Nobody left. Will there be 1 or 2 high-profile incidents that our friends at the New York Post will write up about in a big way? Sure. But tell us what you found. You're finding New York's business leaders, they're not going anywhere.
No, and money talks on Wall Street, so look where they're putting their money. You know, as you said, commercial leasing is crazy right now. You know, Salesforce, whose CEO, Mark Benioff, had some very strong words for San Francisco, is not shy about calling out city mismanagement, just renewed their lease just a couple blocks from here. You know, JPMorgan just opened a $3 billion monument to capitalism a couple blocks away on 47th Street. Ultimately, these are talent businesses, and for reasons we can get into, young talent wants to be in New York City. And in fact, the core of Mamdani's coalition was these white-collar, college-educated people who are complaining about prices, but they are squeezed precisely because they all want to be here. And, you know, I think without talent deciding that New York City is not somewhere they want to be, nobody's going anywhere.
Kudos to the editors at Semaphore for letting you start the headline with "Relax."
My editor wrote that headline.
Oh, he wrote it? Oh, very nice, very nice, yeah. But it does feel like, I mean, maybe part of it, do you think that part of it is also like in COVID, there was such an exodus of New Yorkers out of the city. Some of that is sort of baked in. I mean, for sure, the suburban real estate market is also white hot, right? There are a lot of people who are leaving the city. One thing I keep hearing from people is they're really waiting to see what he does with the schools. That if he puts in somebody that's perceived as like really radical as schools chancellor, there were rumors this summer that he might put in Jamal Bowman. That seems not to be the case now, but people were freaking out about that. That could drive, maybe not leaving the New York area, but certainly leaving the city for younger families that are worried about education. What do you think some of those other dynamics might be?
It's certainly going to be schools. It's certainly going to be police. I think the business community was very heartened by his comments that he would sort of keep Jessica Tisch around. You know, I think you're talking about the pandemic, and you're right, and there was sort of this sense that Wall Street was going to lose, you know, sort of its core talent, and companies were kind of going to leave. But actually, I think the opposite happened, which is on the back of the pandemic, the loudest voices for people having butts in seats 5 days a week were the CEOs of these big financial institutions, and they're going to find it very hard to demand that their employees are in and have them be absentee.
So, J-Mart, you're also on the Mamdani beat this week, and you've got a new piece for Politico magazine titled, "New York is quietly preparing against Trump's takeover of the city." And you write in part this: alarmed at what Trump may do in response to Zohran Mamdani's election as New York City mayor, Governor Kathy Hochul has devised a virtual war room and convened a series of conversations with law enforcement, business officials, and activist groups to stop or at least mitigate any federal incursion. And J-Mart, I wrote this week also about how the White House and President Trump has been watching this race and has been sort of waiting for Mamdani's election, believing Mamdani is the foil that he could use, that'll be the moment he does indeed really turn on his former hometown. You've got new reporting as to how New York will respond. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, so quietly and behind the scenes, there's been a pretty extensive preparation campaign led by Governor Hochul. Her point person is the state emergency coordinator, Homeland Security Director, who has been organizing a series of meetings with folks in and around New York City, coordinating with Jessica Tisch, who you guys just mentioned is the police commissioner for Eric Adams, likely to stay for at least the time being at the start of Mamdani's tenure as well. And the first goal, John, is stop this from happening. They are hoping to kind of preempt any effort to send the feds into New York. If that doesn't work, and I think there's going to be a pretty extensive PR campaign in the next 2 months to make the case we're good, we don't need the feds here. If that doesn't work, then it's phase two. Then how do you mitigate the presence of the National Guard or even active duty troops? Obviously, that's a more complicated question. But I think you're going to see a pretty whole of civic society effort, clergy, veterans, civic officials, activists, labor, to say on the front end, John, don't do this. And Hochul is interesting because she actually has established a rapport with Trump. It's on again, off again, but she does have a line with Trump.
So, Rev, you're the right person to go to this. Mamdani was on with us on election morning, and we put this question to him. Hey, Trump has said he's coming. If you win, he told us that he's ready. What do you think?
I think that he's ready, but ready has to be defined. I don't think that he's encouraging a confrontation. I think he's saying that he will not let the city be bullied. But I also know, and I talked to Jonathan about his piece, that many in the faith community, we are already talking. Bishop Hyde of the Episcopal Diocese, Reverend A.R. Bernard, and others of us are talking about how we set a moral tone to stand up and do what is right. And if the worst comes, how we can try and help to mitigate that with the governor and others. Because at the same time, we want to protect those that we feel are unfairly targeted. We do not want to see this get out of hand either way, and appeal to the business community that can influence President Trump, who has significant business interests. Let's not forget, you're talking about a city where he has a lot of interests. So it is not L.A. to him. It is not Chicago to him. You're talking about Trump Towers and other real estate here that's his, and his buddies are here. I think that there may be ways to deal with this without robbing people of their right and without scapegoating people based on their language or their race. And at least we should try to attempt that. If not, we've got to take a stand that is right and moral.
And we see that polls thought that his moves in L.A., Chicago, other places, unpopular, and his effort to punish New York by scuttling that rail tunnel to New Jersey, well, that may have helped elect the new Democratic governor of New Jersey. We will stay on this. Liz Hoffman, thank you so much. Her new piece for Semaphore, an important piece available to read online now. Good to see you. Also, senior political columnist at Politico, Jonathan Martin. J. Martin, thank you again. New piece also available to read online.